Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney. I'm the community manager here at St. Louis. We are presenting live from St. Louis in our classroom. Today we have Ariana. She is going to be our presenter, talking about all creativity, innovation, which is this month's theme. So we're super excited to have her here and kick everything off. Two main goals that we always want to do is learn something new and meet someone new. So hopefully you will do both of those today. If you're not watching us live and you're watching us in the recording, thanks so much for watching. And we are super excited to have Ariana here and kick off this month of July. It's pretty crazy that it's already July.
It is insane.
Yes, very insane. But we're here. We are ready to get back into the swing of things. I know it's been a long weekend, and so people are kind of just getting back into gear and refocusing a bit. So I think this presentation is perfect and a perfect timing for what's going on right now with everyone coming back from the weekend.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah,
introducing me.
Take it away.
Yeah, it is kind of a funny time because I know for myself, this past weekend, it took me all day yesterday to get back into the swing of things, inevitably because my brain was shut off and I was having a good time. So I can notice and see that maybe others are doing the same. So again, my name is Ariana Jahja. My last name is Macedonian. I'm originally from Bosnia. I grew up in Germany. So if you hear an accent, that's what the accent is. It's usually kind of a mix of Bosnian and German. And I am a career / strategy coach / life coach because it all is sort of intertwined. So I can't really separate them as they come along. But one of my favorite things to talk about is creativity. And it comes in sort of all different forms of subjects, but a lot of times what we know it as is creativity. But a lot of it also has to do with intuition. So listening to our gut, allowing and receiving. So throughout my presentation, I will be giving you some tactics and some tools on how to really access that intuition, how to really be before we can do, and how to take your business and your life to the next level with these tools. So I wanted to first show a bit of a bit of a background. So this is my little family. This is my son, Kian. He's 9, and he is one of my biggest inspirations because, you know, children are always in the now. They're always in this moment. And so he really inspires me to play, which is a big part of creativity, is to be playful. And really sometimes scoot down to his level and listen to his and be in his energy. So that's him. And then this is my husband, Jay. And we have been married for about 2.5 years now. And yeah, he is another inspiration. He's a boxing instructor. We also own a boxing gym here in St. Louis. So it's always fun to bounce ideas off of each other. And as we will talk about, physical movement and working out, and especially boxing, is a big part of creativity because it allows us to really shut our brain off for a little bit so we can actually receive the data that is coming through. So that's a bit about me. I've been doing this work for about 10 years. I've been a coach for about 6, and I am certified through the Association of Talent Development, and I'm now just signed up for the Flow Research Collective, which is a coaching just on creativity, just on flow. And I actually have a book here that I will be mentioning quite a bit throughout today, and it's The Art of the Possible by Stephen Kotler. So if at any point you want more information on how to be more creative, how to access states of flow, this is your book. So just wanted to put that out there. All right, so what I wanted to start off with is, of course, a grounding meditation. And the reason this is so important is that we really want to calibrate our body and our mind to be able to receive this data today and to learn, right? So it's really a fun, calming way to start off the presentation. So for anyone on Zoom and in Denver and also here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on some music, and I just want you to get really comfortable in your seat, and I'm going to walk you through a grounding / visualization meditation, which will take about 5 minutes, okay? Sound good? All right. So what this is I hope that you all out there can hear hear this, what this is a calming frequency. This one specifically is for anxiety. We got some love frequency, which will allow us to really sink into our body and relax, okay? So close your eyes. All right, so we're gonna take a deep breath through our nose first. Inhale, expand your belly and hold for 2, 1, and I want you to exhale out through your mouth. One more deep breath through your nose. And this time on the exhale, I want you to hear that loud noise. Exhale. And with your eyes closed, bring yourself to a place of stillness. Straighten your back and feel every worry, anger, or fear fly away from you as you find your peace. And when your mind has cleared and all around you is silent, repeat the following to yourself. I'm alive. I'm present. I'm safe. If you only thought these or whispered them the first time, now try saying them out loud. I'm alive. I'm present. I'm safe. And one last time, louder this time, and more assertive. Believe in what you are saying. I'm alive. I'm present.
I'm present.
I'm safe.
I'm safe.
Take a deep breath in and out through your mouth. Begin to breathe gently and bring your attention to the part of the body that is connecting you to the ground, either the legs and your bottom or the feet. With each breath you let out, visualize your roots begin to sprout and grow into the ground, just like a little nub on the first breath, but progressively bigger with each breath you take. Grow your roots until you can gently wiggle your body and not pull them from the earth. Find your place and become still. And once your roots have grown deep, take one more deep breath. And then proceed going about your day with each step, feeling those roots grounding you today. And now I want you to imagine that you are in your happiest place. This can be a playground or a beach or a meadow or even a room. And all it needs to be is a place of stillness, of happiness. Imagine that you are safe in this place. There's an invisible wall around it that will not permit any worries or negative thoughts to step through. You are safe from these thoughts and worries. With stillness in mind, you soar, and I want you to set your intention for today, for this training, for the rest of your day, maybe even for the rest of your week. I want you to feel what it feels like to have your intention come true. And once you're ready, I want you to take one more deep breath in through your nose, expand your belly, and exhale out. slowly open your eyes. Shake your body. Let's wake up a little bit. All right, so how do you feel? How did that feel for people in the room?
Refreshed.
Okay. Were you able to really sink in and feel the roots and all that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of thoughts, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Were flowing.
Yeah.
My brain was pretty busy.
Yeah.
Busy brain,
Yeah.
right?
Like not things I have to do, but just like things I think I needed to think that I haven't been taking the time to think for a while.
Oh, so you had different things come up that might be things that are happening in your life that you're like, oh, this was kind of covered.
With like work related things that I think I needed to process for a second. I don't know why, but I just did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. And that's why I love to do this and start off with this, is because when we quiet our minds, things start popping up, right? And when our mind is untrained, sometimes it tends to be things that we might not want to deal with. And also if we aren't, used to this, these thoughts, we might just cling on to those thoughts. And my number one rule is that we don't want to believe everything we think. And we don't want to attach to everything we think, right? And so we'll talk a lot more about that. So thanks for sharing. Okay, so let's go back to this. All right, so I hope you were able to set an intention for today. And my goal and my intention is for you to walk out of here with at least one tool to use to really spark some creativity in your life. So it could be in your business, it could be in your just day-to-day, it could be with your relationship, it could be anywhere really in your life. And I want it to be aligned and magical for you. I love to talk about magical, right? Because there's so many rigid things we talk about in business, about, calendar, and we'll talk about that for sure, in meetings and, money and finances and stuff like that. We forgot about the fun things, the magic, the feeling, right? So this is really, really exciting, and I want that for you today. So one question that I have, and if you have a piece of paper, I know I can give you some, is, do you believe you are creative? And why or why not, right? And then think about a time you had an idea that you created into being, and how did that feel? And so for anyone here in the room, if you want to just share, since it's not that many of us. You want to go?
Oh,
I can go first too.
As long as there's creativity. Are we thinking like work or life or
anything? Literally anything. It could be, little. It could be big. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. But just think of a time. Well, first answer: do you believe you're creative?
I do think I am creative as an artist.
Okay.
With like clothing and fashion, I am a seamstress, and so I like to noodle ideas to make clothing. I don't know if there's like some original idea that I had that I feel like impressed with myself about, but
okay.
I don't know.
Well, I think that's really interesting because you said, I don't think it's that interesting. So you're already sort of judging your creativity. Yeah. But it's also interesting that you kind of separated it. You said, I feel like I'm artsy, or is that what you said, kind of in your business, but then outside of that, you might not. You kind of separate the two.
Yeah. Well, that's more like hobby lifestyle. I'm a massage therapist, so my business, it's like, I don't know if creativity is the word for my business, but just in my life, I think I'm creative enough that I enjoy being creative. I don't know if I understand the question.
Yeah, that's okay. I think there's no right or wrong. Yeah.
I think my definition of creative and creativity was always like artistic, or I can paint well, or I can draw well, or I don't know. Now that I've matured a bit. I think it's more of just the way you think of things and maybe not being so cut and dry. So I don't know, I think creativity is pretty broad. So yes, I believe I'm creative in certain things. Those things I don't know. Let's see, think about a time you had an idea that you created. Gosh, I don't know. I think work-related, there are ideas that kind of spark through maybe conversations or experiences, and then you get creative off of those. So maybe I think of like, oh, instead of maybe me being like, oh, I have an idea or a solution, maybe that's more of me being creative. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Do you want to share if you think you're creative or not?
I think I'm creative. I think I'm creative in different ways. I think growing up, I was creative like in an art way. And then my father went, I'm not paying for art school. Like, if you're going to college, I'm paying for business. So, but I think a creative brain is about coming up with new things and new solutions. And so I do that all the time in my job. Now I'm in marketing, so I get the benefit of both worlds. I'm not certainly as creative as some like designers or my son, who is like definitely an artist, but I think I'm creative differently.
Yeah, so exactly. So and I think there's kind of a theme that, there's certain areas you might think you're more creative, but then others you're like, I'm not so sure. And I'm hearing from all of you really kind of that art, like their art is definitely, people who have musical inclinations or art, that they are creative, but might not be so much like if you're into math, right? So, okay. So I wanted to kind of go through some definitions that I found that I thought were very inspiring about creativity. And these are from artists and, business and business owners and CEOs. But one here is that I really like just tapping into your soul and your intuition and allowing them to guide you what you make, right? And the other one was seeing the intersection of seemingly unrelated topics and combining them into something new.
Yeah.
Pattern recognition. Right? Our brain loves patterns, and it's constantly putting together things in the environment subconsciously. So this one really spoke to me. Living in possibility and abundance rather than limitation and scarcity. So we know we kind of live in this manifest abundance world, and I hear this all over in my field, and I love it. I think that, living in possibility and taking then from an idea and creating that into, reality is something that we all do all day long, every day, right? But we don't give ourselves credit for that. Yeah. And then this last one is my favorite, which is building a universe out of nothing. Wow, like I always get goosebumps thinking about this one, right? Because everything that's ever been created was an idea first. And then it manifested into physical being through our actions and us moving our body and our muscles and putting it into the real world. So here's some romantic, if you want, definitions. And then I'm going to go next into a more science-based definition. And so that's that creativity is pulling from this wealth of knowledge we store in our brains and making connections between different ideas we have to solve a new problem or write a novel, right? So it could be a novel, it could be music, it could be something, but it could also just be problem solving day to day in our work. And I like this next one that I read actually in this book that says, we don't have to be imbued by the gods. We can borrow from the data around us, right? Love the idea of the abundance, and that's what I live for the flow and the romantic part of it. But also, this means anyone can be creative, any of us in any area of our lives, right? So that's very, it feels good to me. I hope it does for you as well. And so I wanted to go into a couple more myths here. And that's that, you either have creativity or you don't, right? And I hear that so often, is that people are like, well, I'm just not that creative. I just last week spoke to a friend. I think she's the most creative person in problem solving. she's planning a wedding and she's recruiting all these people to do the creative work because she keeps saying, I'm just not creative. I'm just not creative. And I told her, I said, pause, right? Before you put that out there, you are creative. And I gave her all these ways of how she has solved problems creatively, right? So that is definitely a myth. You have to be right brain. So this myth was debunked a long time ago because we used to think the left brain versus the right brain, there's different processing. This is not true. We actually use the entire brain to creatively think, which is really cool. And then here, what we mentioned before, creativity means you are artsy, musical inclination, and that's the only way to be creative. Not true, as we talked about earlier. And you have to be able to decorate well or draw in order to be creative. So, that's really kind of what our society thinks. And I think that's kind of, it kind of blocks us from really going into what we said earlier with all those definitions, to really creating worlds that are more meaningful for ourselves. And that you can learn how to be creative. And this is absolutely not true because, in fact, research shows it's 80% learned.
Oh, wow.
80% learned. And I thought that percentage was really high, even for what I thought, because it is something that we don't really think about. So anyone can cultivate creativity. It can be activated and learned. And today I'm going to be sharing some tactics with you. And one more thing I want to mention here is inventive thinking on a micro scale. And I just recently was reading about this in a book. And it can be done day to day, right? So we don't have to think about creating this big project that's super creative, but we can think about little tiny things throughout our day. And I'm using an example here that this guy used in the book, and he said, frozen grapes in wine. Because if we put ice in white wine, it dilutes the wine and it doesn't taste good. So someone just randomly thought of putting frozen grapes in it so it still tastes cold, but it's not watery. So, this is really kind of a cool idea, but these are the micro kind of creativity ideas that we might think about all day long, but we might not even, right? We might discount it because we don't see ourselves as creatives. Okay, so now to the fun stuff. Because I'm a primarily thought work coach, which means I believe my philosophy is that everything we create in our world is created through thought first. Of course, there's energy, of course, there's intention, all the things, but it also comes from thought work. So basis today is how we think plus how we feel plus act creates our personality and it creates our habits. And when I first found this out, I throughout the years knew this here and there, but then when I actually studied this, I cried. I was really happy when I found out a model that I use because I think it's so liberating, right? It means that if we choose to change our thoughts, if we choose to feel a certain way, which we can do through daily work, we can completely change our reality. We can create anything we want in our lives, including creativity, right? So unfortunately, though, sometimes personality and habits are created by the past and old thinking. And so what that means is that, if at some point throughout your lives, as you were mentioning earlier, you're like, well, I'm artsy here and I'm creative here and I'm, but not here, those are old stories and old patterns. So what we want to do is interrupt those patterns, right? So that we can start thinking in possibility in the future. And this is very tricky because these patterns run in the back of our mind. So they're very subconscious. And a lot of times you don't even know that they're really running our reality. So we are recreating the past over and over and over again. And so again, in order to be creative and create something new, we have to think from possibility and be open to that. And in order to be creative, you must feel safe. And this is something that's coming up a lot in neuroscience, in psychology, and coaching, is that this idea that we have to feel safe within ourselves to explore something that's new. And not only do we have to feel safe within ourselves, but we also have to feel safe in our environment, right? So think about if there's an organization and even here, right? To be able to go out and tell people about our ideas, we have to feel psychologically safe because we don't want to be shamed, we don't want to be judged, right? We don't want to have that fear around being who we truly are, right? But to be creative takes a bit of risk, right? Because we might have an idea, we might say it out loud, And people might look at us funny, right? And then we feel like we're not enough. And if there's drama, especially, sometimes we just, hide. So this is really, really important. And so I also put here progress versus perfection. Lots of times the perfectionism also gets the best of us because we think we just have to have this one idea, like in the movies, right? Where they're like walking around and all of a sudden they have this great idea and then they go and they create the idea. Well, it doesn't work that way, right? There's a lot of fail before there is one great thing, right? But that's part of the process. So progress versus perfection for sure. Any questions so far before I go into the blocks? And I hope maybe any questions on Zoom. If you have any questions, you can always put them in the chat. All right, so let's go into the 5 common blocks. I'm gonna walk through these fairly quickly. I didn't see any chats or anything, not yet. So as I mentioned before, block number 1 is going to be, of course, being committed to negative thoughts and language that isn't serving you. Research tells us we have 60,000 thoughts. So earlier when we were saying all these thoughts are popping into your head, right? That's that. We always are thinking. We cannot turn our thinking off, right? And it's completely random, which is really kind of the interesting part. Like these thoughts could be anything from anywhere, but a lot of the times it's just the past. And for many, many of us, we ask ourselves the same questions day in and day out. And when we really, really start paying attention, a lot of them are blocking us from really stepping into creative worlds. So I also call them soundtracks. They're like soundtracks of our brain, right? And they're keeping you stuck in the past and away from creative flow from source energy, whatever you might want to call it. Yeah. Can you relate to that? Is there something that I see you nodding your heads? Yeah. And is there anything you currently do to kind of mediate that and work with that?
I write lists every
Okay.
day,
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of like get it out of my head, and then I try to focus on those lists. And I feel like that does free up a little bit, but generally then like there's free space and it just comes back.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So like you pour out the cup, but then it fills up again. Yeah. Well, I love that you were mentioning brain dumping, because that's what we call it, is brain dumping, right? Is really getting everything out. And so when you write your list, is it just the things you have to do, or is it also feelings? How deep do you go?
So I think for the most part, I'm just a very busy person, and everything I need to get done for the week, I'll make like a giant list, but then every morning I wake up and I do journaling for like an hour, and I just sit there and write out like the things I need to do, how I think I'm going to accomplish those things, and like my husband's on vacation this week and he's messing everything up, but it's mostly just schedule, not so much feelings or thoughts.
Yeah, which is a great start for sure. Yeah. And so I love that. So brain dumping, everything you have to do, and then comes the part of like our inner chatter. And it'll ask, well, why and how? And you might not be feeling 100% that day, right? You might be like, oh, I don't really want to do this. You might have mind drama from the day before, right? So that's coming into place. Like maybe something happened with the family or whatever, right? With kids, if you have kids. So there's a lot there. So what I like to do is think about the brain, the thoughts. It's just sentences in our brain. And when we brain dump them, we want to make sure that we write them out just the raw way that they come to us, right? So if it's like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, or I feel like crap today, or whatever it is, you want to write them out. The petty ones, the good ones, the scary ones. You want to write them all out. And then we want to evaluate them. And I put in here a method you can use, because the feelings that are coming up that morning, many times what we do is like we just attack our to-do list. We're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go, do, right? But what happens is if we keep layering the emotions that are underlying the things we have to do, we are gonna kind of burn out, or we're gonna feel overwhelmed, or we're gonna blow up, or something is just gonna get misaligned. So I want you to think about, when we're aligned, everything we're able to enter the flow state. When we're misaligned, chaos starts happening, right? And things start happening and we're dropping our phones maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like, just random stuff starts happening and we don't feel in the flow state. So this is really, the block one is really important. It's because you want to be conscious. You want to be conscious of where we are with our beliefs and thoughts and feelings. And the RAIN method is really popular. And the method says, we want to recognize what is going on. So as the feeling comes up, we're like, okay, curiosity. Why do I not want to do this task? Or why am I feeling this way? Where is it in my body, right? Because emotions are chemical reactions in our body. They're vibrations, and they can get stuck. And when they get stuck, the flow gets stuck, right? So we really want to identify where is it in our body, how does it feel, right? And then we want to just allow the experience in. So we want to sit with it for 5-10 minutes, as long as you need, right? And really feel that emotion, because emotions are really, really, they're tools. There's no good or bad emotions, there just are, right? Even though they feel really, really bad in that moment. And I always say it's kind of like emotions are like cramps. You just kind of, it's there. You're like, I know it's going to go away. You're just going to let it ride, like it's a weight, riding a wave, right? And then investigate with kindness. And this is the part where most of us struggle with this, right? Because we start judging ourselves. I shouldn't feel this way. I should just get to my list. I should be doing this work. I drank too much this week and I do this. I'm like, I had too many glasses of wine. Or like I'll start, blaming myself instead of investigating with kindness of like, okay, well, this is why. All right, well, you're human, having grace for ourselves, right? And just having natural awareness, which comes from not identifying with the experience, right? So like, I'm not this emotion. I'm just feeling cranky today. I don't want to do the things on my list. Just the fact that we acknowledge that lets go of the resistance. And when we let go of the resistance, it doesn't persist anymore. So when we resist, persists, right? So this is really important to kind of, rocket and shoot off into creativity, is really letting go of any resistance that there is that day. And then if you just can't snap out of it, I always recommend, if you can, meditate or take a nap. And to really, because sometimes our brain will get so overwhelmed with the emotion and the feeling that like we just spiral into layering more.
Like a toddler.
It's
Take
like
a nap.
yes.
I was gonna say this, I gotta tell you, this scares me because I have journaled before and it's never a pretty sight. Like it starts off as one thing and then by the end, like the nose is running. And,
I love that.
and it's like,
yeah.
it's like a dam that's been released.
Mhm.
I am very good at compartmentalizing, putting things in a box, moving forward. This is like, I could be down and out for a week.
So
How do you do this in a fashion that doesn't release the dam and throw you into a massive funk?
and so what's wrong with releasing the dam?
Who has time to be in a massive funk?
Yeah.
Like truly, like
Yeah.
a husband, 4 kids, a job, like not more than a job, like a business. Like how do you? I wouldn't have time to be in a massive funk all day long, right?
But here I'm going to challenge you, right? Because even the thought that you're already telling yourself, okay, so our brain does exactly what it thinks we want it to do all the time. It's always eavesdropping. So if you're already going with the intention that you're going to be in a funk, you're probably going to be in a funk, right? So this, when you go into the intention of like, I'm just going to feel my feelings. I'm going to figure out, are there any messages I need to know today that I might have like covered up? And I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to give myself 15 minutes. I'm going to sit with this and I'm going to really look at the thoughts that are coming up and ask myself, are they serving me? If they're not serving me, what should I be? What could I think instead? What's a better feeling thought? Right? So this is a higher conscious level of taking over our brain. Like we're telling our brain what to do. Our higher self is telling our primal self how to go throughout our day, right? We can definitely do it the way that it's done, right? Currently, a lot of people are like, well, I don't have time for that, right? Now, the danger in that is that you get into this routine of just doing the basic stuff, right? And you're not feeling your feelings, and eventually something might happen and it might trigger you, right? And if that's happened to you, right?
It does. Oh yes.
Because we're like, well, we don't have time for that now, so it'll start to resurface, and we're like, no, like whack-a-mole, right? We don't want to deal with that right now, and then one day it'll just come out. So this is really a good way to just keep the steady flow of energy and take control over our brain, right? Which is a beautiful thing. So be conscious is the first solution, is to really keep track of that. Now, block 2, for many people, and I know here business owners, you probably know why you started a business, why you have a business, but a lot of times we don't know what we care about and what we want to create. And I mean this on like a really deep level, right? So what is it that we truly, truly care about? Like, what is our mission? What is our purpose? Why are we here? And what's our business trying to accomplish? Right. So I think that's something we talk about quite a bit. And I work on and Wash You in my job. We do this quite a bit, like really looking into the values of like, what is this team about to create? But as a person too, we want to know what we care about. What is out there in the world? What problem would we really want to work really hard for? Because clarity breeds creativity. If we have so much specific clarity, and this is technically how our brain will work. Like if we can put it into a sentence, it will now start finding patterns in the world, right? The more clear we get on our purpose. And so I wanted to put a solution here, and that's be clear, right? Leading with desire. We always want to lead with our desire. We always want to feel good first. And so matching your intention with an elevated feeling is how we want to go into clarity, right? So what we focus on, we create. So when we think about goals, for example, in your business, right? So thinking of, or in your personal life, and this is actually what I do my VIP days. I'm in a room with people for 6 hours, and we think about, okay, what are all the things you've always wanted to create in your life? And we start brain dumping on a whiteboard, just to kind of get an idea of like, what is it that I do that I truly care about? Because like you said, like who has time to sit there and think, okay, well, yeah, what is it, right? So this is really important to really get there and have awareness in your business too, of like what is working, what isn't working, what do I want to change, how do I want things to be as they relate to my intention. And then also, what are you trying to solve in your business? Because many times like we know kind of what we want to do, but what is the actual sentence? What's the actual goal? What's the actual result we're trying to create? So that we can, when we go out and meet people, when we start going out and talking to others, we can see those patterns again. And then what is your deepest desire for your business and why? Obsessing over the topic, right? So how do you all feel about this in your current business, like in your career? Where are you with this?
I really like this. I would tell you, my business is 20 years old. And when I started the business, I had a very specific intention, feeling. And now that it's 20 years in, I've changed is the big thing, right? I'm now going, that was such a guidepost for me on building this business for 20 years, but it's now not as motivating as what it was. But I feel like there's something else brewing, behind the scenes, and I don't stop to process, well, what is that? And is there another guidepost that I should be looking at? Instead, I'm trying to just solve before I understand where I'm going. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We're just kind of going ahead, but not stopping and kind of really identifying what it is that's driving. And so, it sounds like we just need a reset of like realignment, like what from the past can you take in, and then what's the future holding, and how can you marry the two?
Yeah, because in the past I was really, really passionate about having a solution for women that I knew that were brilliant, that felt like in that day and age you had to choose between being a professional and being a mom, and there were so many people that they'd have their babies and they'd be like, oh, this is a beautiful child, and I'd be like, I'm going to choose the child. And that was really passionate, because you could come up with lots of solutions based on this like passion that I had for, no, we can solve for this. Like you can have both, and so that was always such a guidepost in all aspects of my business. But now that's not now that's everywhere for the most part. And it's not driving me as much anymore.
Yeah, so that's exactly the time to stop and think, okay, well, what is the next thing? And because what I'm hearing too is the empowerment, right? So how can you in other ways empower women, right, to be the best that they can be? back then it was that. Now what is it? Right?
Sure.
It's constantly being on top of it. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Okay, let's see. Anyone else want to share? That's okay. So I was just gonna really quickly, well, we might want to skip this because, yeah, well, let's skip this one. But just to think about doing that exercise at some point, you know, tomorrow or this week, just really closing your eyes, maybe putting on some meditative music and really kind of exploring your mind and your deepest desire. And so many of us will get hung up on, I don't know, what is it that I want, right? Because we've like covered it so far down with all the day-to-day things that, you know, accessing it really requires really shutting off so many parts of our brain, right? And so I'll talk more about how to get there, but really try that exercise to really maybe even free write about what is it that I want? What is it that I want? Keep asking that question and asking your heart. Our heart is magnetic, right? Our heart can be open. It can access a lot more energy than our brain. Our brain is kind of limited, right? Our brain processes all the information, but our heart is the stuff that feels the energy and we're able to connect, right? So this is really kind of a cool thing. Okay, so block number 3 is being committed to doing more. So what you just said, right? Go, go, go. And forgetting to be. And so another book that I'm obsessed with is Joe Dispenza, and he talks very much, he's studied the heart and the brain and the electromagnetic field around us and how our thoughts affect our physical being. And in his book, he has this visual that I thought was really, really cool. So this is the difference between a coherent and incoherent brainwaves, right? So if you're in the present moment, you can see here how the waves are all just coherent and nice, right? When we're stressed, it's all over the place, right? So imagine trying to be creative in that space of stress. Stress is the number one thing that kills creativity. We must be stressed, at least for a little bit stress-free, and be stressed in order to receive any kind of creative information. So I think this is really important. So the present moment is where it's at. Now I know it's easier said than done, right? So it's really a practice. It's really, how can I bring myself back in every moment. Even one of the things that I like to do is really set a timer. Like if I really feel misaligned and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff going on. Setting a timer for every hour and taking about 5 minutes to just reground. If you can, you're like, okay, I'll do the next hour, right? But it's just kind of a constant reminder because what we want to do is make it a habit, right? We're habit type of beings. So this is something to create a habit of. And so this is what I put here. Find the time in your day to interrupt the known programming and sit and tune into possibility. And this is also the incubation stage of creativity. So there's a whole process, right? And so the incubation stage is the one where we actually, so an example is the shower. So how many of you think it's a portal? I think it's a portal. Mm-hmm. Every time I step in, I'm like, all these ideas just like, it all just, makes sense. Well, that's the incubation stage because we're not using too much cognitive space, cognitive load to process the environment, right? Because there's so much information being thrown at us at all times. So when you're in the shower, you're like, well, I don't really have much to process except for the wall and the shampoo, right? So everything just starts happening. So that's the incubation stage. So any day, every day, if you can find some time for yourself to really get into that stage. But in order for that to work, you have to have clarity and you have to write the problem out specifically, right? Your subconscious, while you're sleeping, will find the patterns. You don't even have to try. Your subconscious is super intelligent. So as you're sleeping, as you're walking around, if you ask that question when you're trying to solve specifically, it will find the patterns and it will come to you during this incubation stage. It's really fascinating. And in this book, The Art of Impossible, he talks quite a bit about that. And let's see. And then writing a vision of the future. Has anyone done this? Written like an, what your vision would look like. You have? Awesome. Yeah. So that's the fun part, right? Like, how do you feel in your future? Exactly does it look like? So you can find those patterns and embody them as you go through life. Block number 4. Let's see how I'm doing on time. 15 minutes. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So this is another thing that in my coaching I do quite a bit with people is calendaring and time blocking, which for many people, it's like counterintuitive. They think that if you're time blocking, if you're calendaring, if you're super disciplined, there is not enough time for spontaneity, therefore creativity, which sort of is true. But there are ways to do this correctly, right? So not taking charge of your time and if you stop leaving your day to chance and distraction. So distraction is a really big one. And the solution here is really time blocking because it is freedom. And what time blocking is really deciding times of your day when you will do certain things and allowing yourself to do that, right? And so a morning routine is crucial when it comes to creativity. So it doesn't have to be super early, although in this book he calls this non-time, and that's the time between 4 o'clock and about 7:30, maybe 8, where nobody is really up, right? So he calls that non-time and a really good time to work on creativity because you don't have to worry about the rest of life, right? So that's a trick here. And then also, creating intentional spaces in your home. For me, I have my porch right now. It's literally a little sanctuary. I walk out there. I wake up at 5:30 and I'm out there for like 2 hours. Then I sit and I write and I think and I meditate. And then when that's done, I go into life, right? So figure out where in your house you can create a sanctuary, right? You can have the pictures that inspire you because the environment that we creates us back. So if you've ever noticed, if you've ever been in a space where the lighting is off, the carpet is weird, the walls are weird, right? You feel that because it's the energy that it brings. So in order to do the opposite, you want to create a space where you feel safe to explore your brain, turning off all distractions. So during this time, this non-time, no pings on your phone, right? Email, all of that. Those are the worst creativity killers because they distract us and it takes us about 2 to 3 minutes to get back on to what we're doing. Setting a timer, making sure that you know that you stay in the box. A lot of times with creativity, we say, think outside the box. Well, research shows you want to stay in a box, which means time and space created to just do the creative work. And then stop when it's most exciting because creativity needs momentum. Okay, so when we stop when it's most exciting, we can wake up the next day and do it again. When we completed the task fully, our brain is like, nope, no more dopamine hits, right? So this is a little kind of like a pro tip is when you're like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. You're reading about whatever. Stop right there and go on to the next thing. Yeah. All right. So let's go into the last block is thinking that you have to do it alone. So as a business owner, I work for WashU and I've been in a team environment for 10 years, but the last 1.5 years I've been a solopreneur. And this really is something that I always work on, because you think you have to do it alone and there's no, you don't talk to people, you kind of just create. Like for me, I create my content, I'm hiding in my office. That's why I came here, right? You don't have to do it alone, right? Just talking to other people will spark those patterns, right? Bringing up conversations, even talking about things that are non-related to what you're trying to create, sharing that energy, sharing that open heart space can be magical here, right? So anytime, where is your tribe? Think about where are the people doing the things that you're trying to accomplish? Who inspires you? Reading the books, going on, doing the webinars, and I put in your masterminds and communities. How can you really engage and obsess over the topics that you're trying to create once you've clarified what it is that you're trying to do? And then surround yourself with those people. There's so much right now on Instagram, so Facebook, all the things. So it's really easy. Podcasts, even listening to podcasts can be community building and can be very inspiring. And then quickly here, I had so much information. I'm like, I want to add this in here. Here's some bonus things that you can start doing like tomorrow. This one is called 14 days and 14 minutes a day. So for the next 14 days, every morning you wake up, you want to spend about 14 minutes absorbing creativity of others. So like I just said, any podcasts, any blog posts, any books, just set your timer for 14 minutes and read. And then the other thing is, for the next 14 minutes, you can turn, I don't like the news, but like if there's a problem or if there's something that you can read in a magazine, if you're like, oh, how can I solve that problem? What are some small ideas on how I can solve this issue? It can not related to your business, right? And this is the key too, because we want to step away from our business because it's so close, right? If we're trying to be creative, we want to just work on that muscle in our brain to come up with ideas like that. So doing this for 14 days, thinking about how can I solve someone else's problem? And what are some ways? And then really do that every day. This is really cool. So we've all done brainstorming, right? So apparently brainstorming is like the worst thing, because when we're in a group setting like this, if we don't feel safe in a group, remember I talked about safety earlier, if someone says something, they're still filtering it through the safety of like, are they going to judge me? They still tell everybody the best idea. They don't technically say the things that they would never say, right? I've been there. Like I never did well with brainstorming sessions. So what this author suggests is role jamming. And role jamming is when we pretend, so like let's say we're in a group and I say, okay, so you're going to play the role of the CEO and your name is this. You're going to be the admin coordinator. You're going to be this. And let's try to solve this problem this way. So now you're taking on a role of someone completely different. So you don't have the identity and the persona is removed, right? So you don't have to take responsibility. So now we're playing a game. So that's called role jamming if you do anything like that in your groups. And then brainstorm bad ideas. I always do that in my brain. I'm like, well, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. I wish I could just throw out the bad ideas. Well, he says that's great. Throw them all out, but then turn it around and think, if I tweaked one little thing with this bad idea, could it be a good idea, right? So that's a good one. And then what is your plan Z? We have plan A, what if it works? What if it doesn't work? And then plan Z is, what if everything goes right? Like the best case scenario, what will it be? And then writing that out. Like if there's no issues, there's no problems, what will plan Z be? And the book is Big Little Breakthroughs, How Small Everyday Innovations Drive Oversight Results. It's really fun. It's a really cool book to read. I just wanted to offer that. And finally, here's my little offer to you. I do have a Business Momentum Mastermind where I have 10 weeks of coaching weekly. I bring guests on during these sessions. Now, the guests are incredible coaches that I've worked with from literally all over the US. I have one that's a Strengths Finder coach. So in this Business Momentum Mastermind, that is included as well. And the format is that you get 10 weeks, 10 conscious creators. So there's this really small and intimate group, mostly women. And then weekly coaching. So not only do we do group coaching, so let's say you are hung up on your brain or there's mind drama over creating some kind of result, you get coached and the others can learn from you. But you also get 30-minute calls with myself each week for the 10 weeks, which is really awesome. And then again, the Strengths Finder assessment, there's an accountability app that I use. So any results you're trying to create, I help you keep in track with that. I assign things to you every week. As you said, you will complete them. And it's customized to you. You meet like-minded people. It's really, really inspirational. Has anyone ever been part of a mastermind? No? They're really, really cool. I love them. And that's kind of what I wanted to recreate here because I've been part of many of them and it's been life-changing because the accountability when you have others who are on the same vibe, on the same frequency, it's a game changer. So if anyone is interested, I do have a good activation bonus today. If anyone wants to talk about the mastermind, I'm happy to offer you a discount today. So yeah. Any questions? I know I've been talking for quite a while here.
Let's see if there's anything on here.
No.
Nothing yet. Thank you. Nothing here. We have about 5 more minutes left.
Yeah, so like any questions, anything specific that you have questions about or that I can help you with, I'm happy to answer.
Curious about the 14-day, 14 minutes.
Yeah.
So just anything. 14 minutes a day, read 14 minutes, podcast 14 minutes, just set 14 minutes aside to just do something for yourself, basically. Or is it more information based?
So let's go maybe with your example, because you said you wanted to kind of refresh your the why and the motivation. So let's say you brainstorm some ways of like how you can empower women more in your business, and you're like, okay, well, you get specific on it, like I want to empower women to be to have a voice in the workplace or whatever, right? So you would go out and find podcasts or other women who are or men in that space, I don't know, who are doing the work, and you would read on that. You might even read specifics about what does it mean to empower, right? So you might find books, and so every day you're spending 14 minutes really engaging your brain in that content, so you can get specific about what you want to do. And so that's one. And then the other one is just to get you familiar with solving problems quickly. So, but again, it has to be removed. So you can just, I don't know, go into like Instagram and, look at like any kind of problems that people are talking about, right? And then sit there and come up with 14 ways of how to solve that problem for them. Good ideas, bad ideas, you're just getting used to putting it out there, right? Because we get so tunnel vision with our thinking because of the things that we deal with every day, right? So really using that muscle is a habit, and so that's what that is trying to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that. I like it's specific, but not really, because you have a specific goal or a specific thought in mind, but you're getting other information to kind of hone in on that one goal.
Yeah, because remember, we want pattern recognition, and so when we expose ourselves to all kinds of information that might be related, our brain will do the work subconsciously in figuring out how can the two be connected, and that's where that idea comes from. Right? So we want to really get that blood flowing in our brain.
Yeah, that makes sense, by the way, on that practicing problem solving, because in my business, that's what I do all the time for different people. And through the years, I've gotten really fast at problem solving because I do it all the time. The harder part is to problem solve for myself and step away, right? But you do get faster for sure.
Well, and to go back to the emotion, so I didn't put this up here, but one of the things that is so important about feeling our emotions is that it really is a key to creativity. Because we feel, right? Emotions are the language of our body. And when we don't feel them, we're missing a lot of information. We don't feel our bad emotions. Like they're so crucial. So if we can spend some time really feeling that and like, oh, okay, and it moves us. And I love how you were like, I start like crying, and that is good. That is so good, because you're really moving energy. Because that's really what it is that, not to get too far into it, but the chakras, right? So we have life energy here, and then we have our thinking energy here. We want to move the life energy through, because what happens for a lot of people, and he talks about it in this book, is like we get really stagnant. Like our energy doesn't move. So we are human beings, material beings, but the energy doesn't go anywhere. So we don't start attracting opportunities. The information that's coming, we're literally blocking it out, we're not moving the energy. So really feeling our emotions and doing some of this work. Yoga is really big, right? So just really any workout. When we talk about incubation, working out is probably the second best way to really get those ideas, right? But it can't be too hard of a workout. So like if you're doing like a HIIT workout, you don't have the capacity. But if it's like yoga or walking or like some light stretching and stuff like that, or lighter workouts, that's how I get a lot of my ideas. Shower and workout. Yeah, for sure. So
shower and running. So always
running,
because you're just saying over. You're just left with your head,
right?
So if you turn off your AirPods.
When if it's too hard of a workout, you're just thinking about how hard
of
a workout it is.
Exactly.
Well, all right. It is
Okay.
1:00, so just to respect everyone's time, we're going to finish up. If you have any other questions for Ariana, feel free to message her through Rise Digital. You here in St. Louis can reach out to her. She's here in and out randomly throughout the weeks, on the weekends mainly. But and if you have any questions in Denver or on Zoom, find her on Rise Digital, find her on LinkedIn. She's a great resource. This was such a great presentation to kick off July's theme of creativity and innovation, and we're so thankful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And next week we are hosting another fireside chat in both cities. So 9 a.m. in St. Louis, 9 a.m. in Denver. We'll have speakers coming in to do a little fireside interview. So be sure to RSVP, and we will see you next time.
Bye.